From the Fox Studios in New York City, this is Maria Bartiromo's Wall Street.
Welcome to the program that analyzes the week that was and helps position you for the week ahead. I'm Jackie DeAngelis, in for Maria Bartiromo. A heart-wrenching week for America, marked by the remembrance of September 11th and the violent death of a beloved conservative icon, husband and father, Charlie Kirk. Charlie dedicated his life to building community, training the next generation of leaders, and standing unapologetically for faith, family, and freedom. No one can deny the impact that he made on American politics and the millions of young people that he inspired. And yet, in the wake of his death, we've heard blame, finger-pointing, and even hateful rhetoric coming from the left.
It's got to stop. And I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it. We've seen the January 6th rioters tripped a new era of political violence.
I don't think a single person who has dedicated their entire career to preventing gun safety legislation from getting passed in this House has any right to blame anybody else but themselves for what is happening.
Oh, please. You know, it's been right. Why don't you start with the President of the United States?
A different message coming from President Trump, who demands that this cycle of political violence come to an end and called for justice for Charlie.
The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy. You know, we have so many bad people, so many bad philosophies, ideologies, politics. His was basically just good.
Incidents of political violence are on the rise. Recent data showing an alarming trend when looking at Capitol Hill. Threats against members of Congress, their families, and staff have skyrocketed 950% over the past 8 years. That's up 48% from last year alone. The U.S. Capitol Police saying they're on track to have around 14,000 cases by the end of 2025. Joining me now is House Homeland Security Committee member and Texas Congressman Tony Gonzales. Congressman, thank you so much for being here. I want to get your reaction to everything that's happening. Some of those stats that we just presented are staggering when we think about the kind of violence and the threats that we're seeing in this country.
Yeah, Jackie, first off, President Trump is right. A lot of the political threats and rhetoric are coming from the left. And when you turn political rhetoric into political attacks that end in murder, Charlie Kirk should be alive today. There's no room for that in our political system. And I'm grateful that the president and his team have done everything to hunt down these murderers, whether it's in Charlie Kirk's case or others. And there has to be done more. As a member of Congress, I'm under threat nonstop, as are many of my colleagues. But what we have to do is exactly what Charlie would want, is we don't shy, we don't become silent, we don't hide. We have to be very vocal, we have to be very out front. That's the conservative movement that so many people have been drawn to.
And we're finding out more details as time passes about what exactly happened here. Motive is going to be very important. But just from the facts that we have alone, Congressman, we can tell that part of this was about silencing somebody whose views were not necessarily agreed with across the board. And when you silence and you don't have dialogue, you really start to threaten the democracy that exists in this country, because part of it is that discourse and that debate. And I think that's one lesson to be taken away here from Charlie Kirk. And I think there's an element of fear also that is, proliferated as a result of an event like this. How important is it to not give into that fear and to be able to move forward and try to propel that dialogue?
It's absolutely critical. I spent 20 years in the military. I served in Iraq. I served in Afghanistan. Earlier this week, I visited the 9/11 memorial site. It was very moving. My life was essentially changed because of the events that happened on 9/11, as were a lot of American lives. And this is, to me, another one of those moments where we can't allow the First Amendment to come under attack. We have to protect it because it is the absolute foundation to our republic. And if we are not allowed to have free speech, and if we're not allowed to have peaceful debate and dialogue, then everything comes unraveled. So that's why it's so important that the president hold these murderers accountable, and it's so important that the rest of us remain vocal and continue to push for that conservative voice that all of us are striving to echo.
Yeah, I think a lot of Americans are going to be looking for justice to be served in this case. Congressman, let's move to this. Domestic threats, threats abroad. The House Homeland Security Committee has been warning about America's AI terrorism issues in this country, saying groups like ISIS and al-Qaeda are now weaponizing artificial intelligence to spread propaganda, recruit lone wolves, to radicalize vulnerable people. Legislation has been introduced in Congress that would keep DHS, law enforcement, and our intelligence agencies one step ahead. How concerned are you about the AI threat, and what is in that legislation?
Jackie, I'm very concerned with the threat. You know, I'm a retired Navy cryptologist, and technology is growing at an incredible rate. And we, the government, we owe it to the American people to protect them. Part of that is making sure that DHS and Secretary Noem has every tool that she needs to go out and track down these bad actors that are operating, either state-sponsored or individuals that are committing these crimes and terrorists before they occur. And then as American citizens, we need to be given more tools. Next month, October, is going to be Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and I'm relying on the FBI and CISA and some of these organizations to give everyday people what are some things that you can do to protect yourself. I think we need more of that, not waiting until after it happens, but being on the preventive end of it.
Yes, and being proactive. Meantime, there's only a handful of legislative days left to avoid a government shutdown. Lawmakers are split on what should be done. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says the GOP proposal isn't good enough to get Democrat votes. And House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says a clean continuing resolution is a non-starter. And not all Republicans are on the same page either. Where do things stand right now?
President Trump is just getting going, and now is not the time for a shutdown. We need to give him the tools he needs to continue to keep us safe, to continue to keep us prosperous. What I suspect happens is we pass a small minibus that includes pay for veterans and the military, as well as agriculture. Agriculture is very important to many communities. We get that done through the rest of the year, and then it gives us a couple more months to get the rest of the government funded, if you will. But now is not the time for a shutdown. And if there were a shutdown, it would be the Democrats' fault for sure. But I believe we have the votes. The Republicans are going to push forward, especially in the House, to make sure that we get the government that President Trump needs and that agenda completed.
Congressman Tony Gonzales, thank you so much for your time. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Jackie.